A racist woman ruined a dress, thinking the waitress wearing it was just another nobody. Her millionaire husband watched as red wine splattered across the white fabric like blood on snow. Victoria Hartwell smiled cruelly, satisfied with what she'd done, while the young waitress struggled to clean the stain. "Oops," Victoria said, pretending to sound innocent. "Such a shame people like you don't know how to behave in civilized places." The Boston Annual Charity Gala was a gathering of the city's elite. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, exotic flowers decorated the tables, and a string quartet played softly, the perfect background for high society. Hypocrisy. Jasmine Washington, only 24, never imagined one waitressing. Job would drag her into a storm of racism and humiliation. A Harvard MBA student, she had taken the job to support her family and pay for her final semester. Her hair was neatly tied in a bun, and she carried trays with quiet grace, the kind that came from years of hard work and responsibility. Victoria Hartwell, on the other hand, lived a life of luxury. As the wife of real estate tycoon Robert Hartwell, she spent her days shopping, lunching, and showing off her wealth. Charity events were just stages for her vanity. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Jasmine said calmly, bending down to pick up the broken glass. "I'll have it cleaned right away." "Don't worry about it," Victoria replied loudly, making sure everyone nearby could hear. "Accidents happen when you hire these kinds of people." Her tone was venomous. Conversations around them stopped as guests turned to watch. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed entertained by the scene. "Perhaps next time," Victoria continued mockingly, "they should hire people who understand how to behave in refined society." Jasmine stayed composed, taking in the insult without reacting. She'd faced worse. Growing up on Chicago's South Side, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs, she had learned that real strength stays calm and waits for the right moment to act. "Of course, ma'am," she said softly, her calmness annoying Victoria even more. Jasmine gathered the shards and walked toward the kitchen. As she passed the main table, she noticed an older man watching her, elegant, gray-haired, with sharp eyes. Their gaze met briefly, and he gave a small nod. Robert Hartwell, Victoria's husband, had built his empire by observing people when they thought no one was watching. From across the room, he saw everything, his wife's cruelty and Jasmine's quiet dignity in the kitchen. Jasmine's hands trembled as she threw away the broken glass. 20 minutes ago, she was just another student working a night shift. Now, she felt something change inside her, a determination growing stronger by the second. She didn't know it yet, but this humiliating moment was about to change everything. If you've ever seen injustice and wanted to see karma in action, stay tuned, because the story that began with humiliation will soon turn into a lesson that powerful won't forget. Meanwhile, Victoria wasn't done. When Jasmine returned in a clean uniform, Victoria had gathered a circle of wealthy women around her, gossiping like it was sport. "Did you see that?" Victoria said dramatically. "They'll let anyone work these events now." Clearly, the organizers didn't check the staff properly. Margaret Wellington, heiress to a pharmaceutical fortune, nodded. "You're right, darling. I had to fire a maid just yesterday for questioning me. People need to know their place." As Jasmine quietly replaced glasses nearby, she could hear them whispering. "She came back. She must really need the money," one woman said. At least she didn't talk back. Victoria spotted Jasmine and raised her voice again. "Well, girls, not everyone is lucky enough to be born with a silver spoon or receive a proper education." What she didn't know was that the waitress she was mocking had graduated, summa cum laude in economics, from the University of Chicago and was now studying at Harvard. Jasmine had grown up helping her mother, translating legal documents after school, Her mother cleaned offices at night to raise 3 children alone. By 16, Jasmine was already managing the family's finances, turning their tiny savings into a fund that helped her 2 younger brothers go to college. She quietly finished setting the table, but Margaret, Victoria's snobbish friend, decided to add her own insult. "Dear," she said sweetly, though her tone was full of arrogance, "you understand that workers should remain discreet, right? It's best not to draw unnecessary attention." "Yes, ma'am," Jasmine replied, keeping her voice calm but her eyes steady. There was something in her tone, strength, confidence, that made Margaret pause. She hadn't expected that. Victoria noticed her friend's hesitation and decided to take things further. "Margaret is absolutely right," she said, standing up and approaching Jasmine with a cruel smile. "Maybe we should have a little chat about proper behavior. You can read, can't you?" Her words were sharp and loud enough for everyone around to hear. The room grew quiet. All eyes turned to Jasmine, waiting to see if she would break. "Yes, ma'am. I can read perfectly well," Jasmine said calmly, her voice steady but her eyes shining with quiet defiance. Victoria laughed, the sound high-pitched and fake. "Wonderful. Then perhaps you can read this for us." She picked up the event menu and handed it to Jasmine. "Let's make sure the staff knows what's being served to the important guests." Everyone could tell it was a setup. Victoria wanted to humiliate her, hoping Jasmine would mispronounce the French dishes or stumble in embarrassment. Robert Hartwell, sitting at the head table, watched with disgust. He'd been married to Victoria for 23 years, but never had he seen her be so deliberately cruel. Jasmine took the menu with steady hands and gave Victoria a faint, confident smile. "With pleasure, ma'am." Then, to everyone's shock, Jasmine began to read the entire menu, fluently and elegantly, in perfect French. Her accent was flawless, her tone confident, her pronunciation impeccable. She had spent 2 years studying in Lyon, France, on a full academic scholarship. Her words flowed smoothly, like music. The guests stared in awe as the waitress recited every French term with the grace of someone who belonged far beyond the walls of that ballroom. Victoria's smile slowly faded. Margaret's mouth hung open. Even the other women, who had been laughing earlier, exchanged uneasy looks. When Jasmine finished, she handed the menu back with a calm smile. "I hope that was helpful, ma'am." The room fell silent. Victoria stood frozen, completely speechless. Everyone could see now that this young woman was far more educated and refined than they had assumed. Robert stood from his seat and walked over. His voice was calm but firm. "Victoria," he said, "perhaps we should focus on the purpose of tonight, charity." Victoria forced a smile, realizing she had just humiliated herself. "Of course, dear," she said quickly, "just making sure everyone understood the rules." Jasmine nodded politely and stepped away. As she turned, Margaret whispered nervously to Victoria, "Maybe we misjudged her." Victoria gripped her friend's arm tightly. "We didn't misjudge anything," she hissed. "Academic tricks don't change what she is. Before this night is over, I'll make sure everyone knows that." But what Victoria didn't know was that Jasmine had been quietly collecting evidence for years, interviews, data, and even recordings for her MBA thesis on racial discrimination in corporate America. Hidden beneath her uniform was a discreet recording device. Every word Victoria said was being captured clearly, while Victoria plotted her next move. Jasmine walked through the room with calm confidence. She had learned long ago that true power doesn't shout, it watches, waits, and strikes when the time is right. Robert returned to his seat, but couldn't take his eyes off her. There was something extraordinary about that young woman, a quiet strength and dignity that no amount of wealth could fake. What no one there realized was that Jasmine wasn't just a waitress. She was weeks away from being hired as the youngest senior analyst at one of the top consulting firms in the country, and the cruel scene unfolding tonight would soon become the foundation for justice, a justice none of them would ever forget. In the hotel's elegant restroom, Jasmine finally let herself breathe. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the surge of adrenaline she knew so well from her days surviving the rough streets of Chicago. Jasmine quietly took a small digital recorder from her pocket and checked it. 23 minutes of crystal clear audio. Every racist comment, every insult, every act of humiliation was perfectly captured. It had started as research for her Harvard MBA thesis on racial microaggressions in elite workplaces, but now it felt like something much bigger than a school project. She stared at her reflection in the golden mirror and took a deep breath. This wasn't just about academics anymore. It was about justice. A soft knock came at the door. "Jasmine, are you all right?" The voice was calm and gentle. She instantly recognized it was Robert Hartwell. For a second, she thought about ignoring him, but there was something genuine in his tone that made her open the door. Robert stood in the hallway alone, looking uneasy. "I wanted to apologize," he said sincerely. "There's no excuse for my wife's behavior. What she did was unacceptable." Jasmine studied him carefully. Years of life experience had taught her how to tell the difference between pity and real respect, and what she saw in Robert's eyes wasn't pity, was genuine shame and anger, directed at his own wife's cruelty. "Mr. Hartwell," Jasmine said softly, "I appreciate your concern, but you don't have to feel responsible for your wife's actions." "I do," Robert replied firmly. "I've had 23 years to correct that kind of behavior, and I failed." "May I ask you something?" She nodded. "You're not really a waitress, are you?" Jasmine smiled slightly for the first time that night. "What makes you think that?" "Your French is better than most professors I know," he said. "Your composure, your intelligence, the way you carried yourself. Tonight's obvious you don't belong behind a tray." He paused. "I recognize brilliance when I see it." "I'm an MBA student at Harvard," Jasmine admitted. "I work part-time to support my family and pay for my last semester." Robert exhaled deeply, stunned. "Harvard? My God, Victoria insulted a Harvard student out of pure prejudice." "Mr. Hartwell," Jasmine said calmly, "this happens more often than you think. Your wife just said aloud what many people believe silently." "That doesn't make it right," Robert said, his voice thick with emotion. "It makes it worse." He hesitated, then asked, "What's your focus at Harvard?" "I'm finishing a thesis on systemic discrimination in corporate environments," she replied. "How bias affects minority advancement in business." Robert was silent for a long moment, then leaned forward. "Jasmine, I want to make you an offer, something that might sound a bit strange." 15 minutes later, they were sitting in a quiet corner of the hotel lobby. Robert ordered 2 coffees and spoke in a low, serious tone. "My company, Hartwell Development, has a diversity problem," he said. "The board wants real change, not just token efforts. After what I saw tonight, I know we need it. I need someone with your expertise to audit our hiring, promotions, and culture." Jasmine listened carefully, her analytical mind noting every word. "That's very generous of you," she said. "It's not generosity," Robert interrupted. "It's necessity. You'd be paid as an external consultant fairly. According to your qualification, you'd have full independence over your methods and findings." He slid a business card across the table. Jasmine picked it up, her heart pounding with cautious excitement. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. Robert looked down, his voice filled with honesty. "Because I've spent years watching my wife act on prejudices I should have challenged. Because my company probably mirrors those same patterns. And because after what I saw tonight, I can't stay silent anymore." Just then, Victoria appeared in the lobby. The moment she spotted them talking, her face twisted into anger, hidden behind a fake smile. "Robert, dear," she said sweetly, walking over, "I've been looking for you. What are you doing here with her?" "Victoria," Robert said evenly. "I'm offering Jasmine a consulting position at the company." The air between them turned thick with tension. Victoria blinked in disbelief, her voice rising. "You're joking, right? She's a waitress." "She's an MBA student at Harvard," Robert replied sharply, "and she specializes in exactly what our company needs." Victoria's face went pale. "Harvard?" "Yes," Robert said, his tone firm. "The woman you humiliated tonight is a highly educated scholar trying to help her family." Jasmine sat silently, observing them with calm, analytical eyes. She could see Victoria's brain working, shocked, but already calculating how to protect her image. "Well," Victoria said stiffly, forcing a laugh, "even if that's true, it doesn't mean we should make impulsive decisions out of guilt." "It's not guilt," Robert said. "It's recognizing talent and integrity when I see it." For the first time since the incident, Victoria turned directly to Jasmine. "Darling," she said with a fake smile, "sometimes these little misunderstandings happen at social events. Perhaps we can all just forget about tonight's minor disagreements." Victoria tried to act innocent, pretending her cruelty was just a misunderstanding. But Jasmine wasn't fooled. "Miss Hartwell," Jasmine said calmly, "there was no misunderstanding. Your words were very clear." Victoria forced a nervous smile. "Of course, dear. But intelligent people like you surely understand that sometimes social context can be complicated." "Actually," Jasmine replied, her voice steady, "people with my academic background are very precise about context and meaning, especially when it comes to documented racial discrimination." The word "documented" made Victoria flinch. Robert noticed instantly. "Victoria," he asked sharply, "were you recorded?" Jasmine didn't answer. She just smiled slightly. Her silence said everything. Victoria's heart dropped. What she thought would be a simple act of humiliation had suddenly turned into something far more dangerous. Jasmine stood gracefully. "Mr. Hartwell, I look forward to your response to the consulting proposal. My assistant will contact you tomorrow with the contract details." As the couple walked away, Jasmine overheard the start of an argument. Victoria's voice trembled with panic. She had finally realized her mistake. She'd insulted the wrong woman. Back in the restroom, Jasmine checked the small recorder hidden in her uniform. She smiled. 23 minutes of clear evidence of racial discrimination, plus 15 minutes of desperate excuses. It was perfect for her thesis on corporate bias, and even better for her career. She didn't feel anger anymore. What she felt was purpose. Victoria's attempt to humiliate her had given her something powerful: proof, leverage, and a chance to make change where it mattered most. Jasmine understood this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reshaping a system that allowed people like Victoria to thrive unchecked. She looked at her reflection and smiled again. Tonight had ended one chapter of her life and opened another. The waitress was about to become the consultant, and when that happened, Victoria would finally learn what true consequences looked like. 3 weeks later, Victoria woke up with a sick feeling in her stomach. Her phone buzzed endlessly, 47 missed calls, hundreds of unread messages. She opened the first link from her friend Margaret and froze. Business executive attacked for racial discrimination, viral audio exposes Boston elite. There was her face on the front page of the Boston Herald, her cruel expression immortalized in a single frame. Every word she'd said to Jasmine was now being played on radio stations. Across the city, hosts criticized her mercilessly, witnesses confirmed the story, and social media exploded in outrage. Panicking, Victoria ran downstairs. Robert sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee and reading the newspaper, his expression cold and unreadable. "Robert, you have to do something," she cried. "That waitress is trying to destroy us." Robert looked up slowly. "That waitress," he said evenly, "is now our company's new corporate diversity consultant. After hearing that audio, I understand exactly why we need her." Victoria's face went pale. "What did you say?" "Jasmine started yesterday," Robert continued. "Her first project is a full audit of our corporate culture, including leadership positions. I assume you understand what that means." Before Victoria could respond, her phone rang again. It was Patricia Whitmore, chairwoman of the tennis club where Victoria had been a member for 15 years. "Victoria," Patricia said coldly, "the board met this morning. Your membership has been revoked, effective immediately. The behavior in that audio doesn't align with our values." The call ended abruptly. Then messages began flooding in. Her social circles, group chat, ladies who lunch, was filled with gossip and outrage. "I can't believe I was friends with her. My daughter's at Harvard. What if she treated students like that? James says we're cutting all business ties with Hartwell Development." Victoria opened Instagram. She had lost 3,000 followers overnight. Her photos were flooded with angry comments. "Rich, racist, exposed. Disgusting human being. Karma always wins." Margaret called next, sobbing. "Victoria, Charles cancelled the office renovation deal. He said he doesn't want to be associated with toxic people. We're finished socially." Victoria was trembling. "Robert, do something. Make the audio disappear. Sue her." Robert stood up slowly, his voice calm but sharp. "Victoria, there's no one to sue. Every word came from your mouth. The only person who destroyed you is you." Then the phone rang again. It was Dr. Harrison, director of the charity foundation where Victoria had volunteered for 8 years. "Victoria, the board has voted unanimously to remove you from all positions." Dr. Harrison's voice came cold and firm through the phone. "Frankly, finding out that one of our leaders expressed such open discrimination has been shocking. For all of us." The line went dead. Victoria sank into a chair, her face pale. In less than 24 hours, she had lost everything: her social status, her friends, her charity positions, and the respect of her entire community. Robert folded his newspaper and looked at her quietly. "You know what's most ironic?" he said. "Jasmine didn't even have to do anything. She just recorded your true nature and let your own words destroy you." At that very moment, Jasmine was at the Hartwell Development headquarters. She looked poised and confident in a tailored suit, carrying a sleek briefcase filled with proposals to reshape the company's culture. Robert stood in front of his employees and announced, "Starting today, Jasmine Washington will lead our new diversity and inclusion initiative. She has full authority to make any necessary changes to ensure our workplace reflects respect and equality." The employees greeted her with quiet admiration. Most had heard the viral recording. They understood what her hiring represented. Jasmine smiled and addressed them with calm grace. "My goal isn't to punish anyone," she said. "It's to create a place where everyone feels valued, respected, and proud of the work we do, no matter who they are or where they come from." Meanwhile, Victoria sat alone at home, trapped in silence and shame. Every new notification on her phone brought another blow: more cancelled invitations, more people cutting ties, more gossip. Patricia Whitmore posted a smiling photo from the tennis club with the caption, "Celebrating our true values, respect and inclusion." Even her hairdresser stopped answering calls, claiming to be fully booked. That night, Robert came upstairs and found Victoria sitting in front of the mirror, crying. 23 years, he said quietly. 23 years I lived beside someone like this, and pretended not to see. "Robert, please," she begged. "Can we talk about this? It was all a misunderstanding." "No, Victoria," he interrupted. "It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was you being exactly who you've always been. The only difference is that this time, someone recorded it." He walked to the closet and began taking out his clothes. "My lawyers will bring the divorce papers tomorrow. The house is yours, but everything else will be divided by the court." Victoria stood up, trembling. "You can't be serious. You're leaving me because of a waitress, because of a Harvard student you insulted out of pure prejudice," Robert corrected, his voice low but full of contempt, "because of 23 years of turning a blind eye to your cruelty, because I finally see that my wife is exactly the kind of person I've always despised." As Robert packed his bags, Victoria finally realized how fragile her world had been, built on privilege, lies, and empty appearances. The next morning, Jasmine woke up in her small apartment near Harvard, ready for another day that would continue changing everything. Her phone was full of messages, support from professors, colleagues, and strangers who admired her courage. What had begun as one humiliating night at a gala had turned into a turning point, an opportunity to bring real, lasting change, all because one woman had underestimated her worth. While Victoria's life collapsed into silence and isolation, Jasmine's future was brighter than ever. She had transformed pain into power, humiliation into purpose. 6 months later, Jasmine was promoted to Director of Diversity at Hartwell Development. Her policies became a national model, and her consulting business grew rapidly, helping companies all across the country build fairer workplaces. Victoria, meanwhile, lived alone in her empty mansion, divorced, forgotten, and shut out of the world she once ruled. Her desperate apologies online only drew more criticism. Robert remarried a civil rights lawyer and donated half his fortune to scholarships for underprivileged students, the kind of young people Jasmine once was. At her Harvard graduation, Jasmine stood on stage before hundreds of students and said, "Never let anyone define your worth through prejudice. The best revenge is the success they never thought you could achieve." Victoria's infamous audio was still being played now, used in classes and workshops about racism and privilege. Her cruelty had become a lesson for generations to come. And Jasmine, if this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that turn pain into purpose. Share this video to remind others respect costs nothing, but it can change everything.